It's July the 20th, 1969, around 4 p.m. You and your entire family are sitting around a tiny black and white TV or a radio. The TV only has a few channels, there's no rewind, and no second options. Just one broadcast, one moment, one major claim that humanity had just done the impossible, or that you were watching the most convincing performance ever put on television to date. Welcome to the Question Everything series, and this episode is called The Moon Landing. Disclaimer: everything discussed in this video is presented for entertainment and discussion purposes only. I encourage you to think for yourself, research for yourself, and come to your own conclusions. Thanks for watching. Enjoy. According to Gallup data, in 1999, about 6% of Americans believed the moon landing was faked. Around 5% weren't sure. Fast forward to this year, 2026, and that number has reportedly doubled, with around 12% believing it may have not happened as we were told. So the question is, why? What are people seeing that makes them stop and look twice? So here are the documented reasons why people are claiming that it was faked. Of the 12% of people, 41% point out the American flag appearing to move in photos. 14% believe the lunar surface lacked the moisture necessary to create clear footprints. 12% believe the Van Allen radiation belts would have killed the astronauts. 10% believed shadows in photographs indicate artificial studio lights. Let's start with what people notice first when watching the original moon landing video. First, the flag. One of the most talked about details is the American flag. There's no wind on the moon, according to NASA, no atmosphere, and yet in multiple clips, the flag appears to be moving. Not violently, but enough to raise a question. What exactly is causing that motion? Did they leave a fan on in the studio? Then we have the footprints. Deep, defined, almost perfect. But the lunar surface is described as dry, powder-like dust. So people ask, how does something with what we assume has no moisture hold such a clear shape? And then there's another detail that some point out. We recently have a picture of the supposed suits that they were wearing on the moon. And it looks like the tread pattern in certain photographs don't appear to match the boots worn by the astronauts, which raises another question. If those were the boots, why don't they match the supposed footprint on the moon? The next question is, where are the stars? This one is super simple, but extremely powerful for this case. You're in space, surrounded by stars, and yet, in the footage we see, where are the stars? The sky is completely pitch black. No stars at all. Next thing is the lighting. There's all these weird shadows going on in the pictures. Normally, a shadow goes behind you from wherever the light source is pointing. Some of these shadows stretch in different directions. Some appear sharper than others, and for many people, the disarray of shadows suggests something like multiple light sources. But that can't be right, because maybe at minimum they had 2 light sources, right? The sun, and maybe the camera had a flash. But it's looking real studio-like to all of us. Next thing is the sea rock. There's a frame that people point to where a rock appears to have the letter C on it, like something from a movie set. The idea is that maybe they forgot, they being the people filming, or the people that made the studio, forgot to flip the rock over. Also, in some of the helmet reflections, which it's not super clear because it was 1969, people claim to see shapes that don't match a natural environment, and some say it resembles lighting equipment. Now we're going to get into movement and physics. Let's talk about gravity. The moon, supposedly, has about 1/6 of the gravity Earth has. So naturally, people expect higher jumps, longer motions, different physics. So the walking or the skipping that is done in the video has been called into question. The landing is another detail that is also questioned. When the module lands, there's very little to no visible dust disturbance, no dramatic blast, no large displacement. And people ask, shouldn't there be some disturbance in the earth? Another question is wires. Some people claim that the movements made by the astronauts when they're jumping and skipping look as though they are using harnesses. And there have been people that have pointed out thin wire-like things coming up from their suits. Now, this is where the whole entire story really starts to crack. We all know in 1969, there were no cell phones, no modern communication, and yet a crisp and perfect live transmission from the moon to Earth.
Telephone from the Oval Room at the White House. And this certainly has to be the most historic telephone call ever made from the White House. I just can't tell you how proud we all are of what you have done. For every American, this has to be the proudest day of our lives. And for people all over the world, I am sure that they too join with Americans in recognizing what an immense feat this is. Because of what you have done, the heavens have become a part of man's world. And as you talk to us from the Sea of Tranquility, it inspires us to redouble our efforts to bring peace and tranquility to Earth. For one priceless moment in the whole history of man, all the people on this earth are truly one. One in their pride in what you have done, and one in our prayers that you will return safely to Earth.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a great honor and privilege for us to be here representing not only the United States, but the peace of all nations, and with interest and a curiosity and with allegiance for the future. Honor for us to be able to participate here today.
And thank you very much, and I look forward, all of us look forward to seeing you on the Hornet on Thursday.
So people ask, how was that signal sent clearly across that distance? Who was filming? Really, it's a really valid question. There are shots of astronauts as they're landing, who's recording them land, and apparently the people are already on the surface from angles that suggest there was preparation. So who set the camera up? Now we get into the staging theory. Some people believe The moon landing wasn't entirely fake, but possibly controlled. Some people believe that it was filmed in a studio so that if the real moon landing did not work out, they would still win. And then we get Project Slam Dunk. This is alleged and a theory. So, what is Project Slam Dunk? It's an alleged secret NASA backup plan designed to guarantee success. Success being the race to the moon. So, the idea is that they pre-recorded the footage in a Hollywood studio. They wanted media-level production involvement. The idea being failure cannot be an option, not during the Cold War, not in a race the entire world is watching. And here is a clip talking about exactly this.
I don't want any money for what I'm doing because hopefully this video won't come out until after my death. So I have nothing to gain, nothing to profit by telling you what I'm going to tell you. In 1968, my father was stationed at Cannon Air Force Base in New Mexico. We lived in Clovis, New Mexico. He was in the military police for over 20 years, and on his deathbed in 2002, we made a recording of what happened. Project Slam Dunk was the name of this. President Johnson in 1968, okay? In Cannon Air Force Base in 1968, he said by the time he got there, that there was already 2 large hangars that were connected. There was hundreds of dump trucks that came in and dumped sand and stone, and cement powder was powdered over the top of all that to make it look like a lunar landscape. They had men that fashioned it into a lunar landscape, he said. Okay, I've never known my dad to lie, so this all took me by surprise. You know, what's that all about? So anyway, he said that in front of the airplane hangars was pole framing with large canvas tents that was concealing the inside of the staging area. Inside the staging area, on flatbed trucks, was created the lunar lander that was reassembled back inside the hangars. All of the walls were painted flat black, and the ceilings as well. He was sworn to secrecy by the NSA, and they would put him in prison for breaking that oath. And when Dad saw the moon landing on TV, he cried. He said he knew that what he had witnessed on TV was exactly what they recorded in that hangar. There was no reason for them to go flying around and everything. They had detailed high-definition photos of the landing area. There was no reason for them to go flying around to a different landing area that almost exhausted their fuel, except for drama, because everything had gone so smoothly. Nothing, so it had to be something. Anyway, Dad was one of 3 guards that guarded the inside of the front entrance. There was a list of 15 people who could enter. No one else was allowed by order of President Johnson. Here is that list, and I gave it to Bart Seidel as well. He checked out a lot of these names, and he says he can verify a lot of these people and what they do. And I come across a couple myself. Anyway, President Johnson, Neil Armstrong, Edwin Aldrin, Werner von Braun, Robert Emenegger, Gene Kranz, James Webb, Joe Kerwin, Dr. Thomas Paine, Glenn Looney, Dr. Christopher Kraft, Dr. James Van Allen, General Trudeau, Lieutenant Colonel Donald Simon, and Grant Norrie. Now, the only two that I really have information on is Robert Eminator. Apparently, he did a lot of video work and stuff for the Department of Defense. So the DoD did know him. Okay. And the other one was Grant Norray, Norray, I believe. Was to the best of my dad's knowledge, was a like some FBI, CIA, NSA, something like that. Okay, President Johnson only showed up for the first day of filming. Filming lasted for 3 days, and the entire project was restored to original. In other words, the hangars were all taken apart, the sand was all removed. Dad said there was a lot of building going on at the base, so at the time, so sand and cement powder was never questioned. I can see how they could smuggle that all in with them and everything else that's going on. Since 2002, I have dug up, I already told you about that, the evidence for the moon landing that I have found. If you go to Google and go to Cannon Air Force Base website, they admit that President Johnson was there. The lunar lander was there. The astronauts were there. I also have verified some of the people on the list were there. I also verified there are a lot of building going on in the base, just as he had told me. And all of this was going on at the same time, on the same date. Dad told me all these things, father to son. He also told me not to ever tell anyone what he had said, but he said on his deathbed that he had to tell somebody before he died because it was just too important not to tell. That's about all I can think of. My dad, he raised me by the book. I know he didn't lie to me.
I also just want to say that this man has since passed away, and I am forever grateful for him taking the time to warn everybody about the deception, the great deception that we're having in the world and how long it's been going on. It's just insane. This is where motive comes in. At the time, the United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a battle of dominance. Not just military, but technology, psychological, and symbolic. Definitely a big one is the moon. It was the ultimate victory, so the question becomes, if losing wasn't an option, how far would a nation go to make sure it didn't happen? There are moments people point to where astronauts are being asked difficult questions, even asked to swear on the Bible. And in some clips, they refuse. For some, that silence speaks louder than words.
Probably a fake Bible.
Really? Well, no, it's the real Bible. You have the opportunity to have $5,000.
The meeting is not open.
Well, you have $5,000 cash. You can give it to charity if you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon.
Please,
I have the tape.
That'd be fine.
Why don't you swear to? Why not? Why won't you do it? So why don't you put your hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Mr. Seibel has made a fool of himself in front of the world. Mr. Seibel, you do not deserve and
We're given the opportunity to swear to God that you walked on the moon.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to get the hell knocked out of you if you don't leave me alone.
So why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God you walked on the moon.
Mr. Seibel, knowing you, that's probably a fake Bible.
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy. Why don't you talk to the administrator in NASA? We're passengers. We're guys going on a flight.
I don't hit people, but you're going to be on the deck unless you.
Well, I'm heading out. I understand.
Well, I take your stuff and get. Yeah. Why don't you quote me and say it?
When the shadows enter on, I don't give a damn about all that
of lunar orbit being falsified.
Being falsified?
Correct. We've got an unedited tape from a source at the Johnson Space Center.
Totally nonsense.
You really like adventure, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, is a video of Buzz Aldrin telling presumably a 7 or 8-year-old that we did not go to the moon in the first place. I hope you enjoy.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened. And if it didn't happen, it's nice to know why it didn't happen, so in the future, if we want to keep doing something, we need to know why something stopped in the past that we wanted to keep it going.
I remember very clearly, I think anybody who was alive at the time does, I remember my parents waking me up and we went down and we watched you guys land on the moon.
No, you didn't.
What?
Because there wasn't any television. There wasn't anybody taking a picture. You watched animation. So you associated what you saw with...
I have very hazy memories.
I know.
Well, what we saw was we all were gathered around the old curved top radio and listened.
Talking about, how many feet we were going to the left and right, and then I said, contact light, engine stop.
It's
a few other things, and then Neil said, Houston, Tranquility Base, the Eagle has landed. Man, how about that?
That was very exciting.
Not a bad line. Not a bad line.
So that brings us to the next question. Fast forward to today, 2026. With all of the advancements in technology, people ask, if we did it back then, why haven't we done it the same way again? Programs like Artemis are discussed.
I'm telling you right now, we've never been on the moon. Have you heard of Artemis 2? We're going to the moon currently. Wait, break this down to me. Okay, so we sent a rocket with astronauts to the moon. Really? A couple days ago, actually. We're going to the moon? We're going to the moon. Big asterisk, though. Big asterisk, right? In the year of 2026, we're going to the moon, and we're just driving by. We're just driving by. Oh, look, the little moon. Let's take a couple pictures and head on back. Wait, we're window shopping the moon? We're window shopping the moon. Why aren't we landing? Because we've never done it before. There is absolutely, if this does not solidify the fact that we have never been to the moon, I don't know what else does. Because it's been 60 years. Right. We have cars that drive themselves. We do have quantum computing. We landed on the moon, played 9 rounds of putt-putt, stuck a flag, grabbed some moon rocks, took a couple flicks, and then launched back off that when there wasn't even a cell phone. We have essentially everything your mind can imagine. And it's been 60-something years, and we are not landing on it. Ask yourself why.
So as all the Artemis stuff is in the news, I want to take you back a couple years. Do you guys remember when Apple dropped that movie called Fly Me to the Moon? And if you guys don't remember it, the premise of this movie was in 1969, they had an alternate backup plan to fake a moon landing just in case they couldn't get to the moon.
The whole world will be watching. We can't afford to lose to the Russians. We need to shoot a backup version of the moon landing.
You mean to fake it?
But what I find really funny about this, do you know what they called their project to fake the moon landing in that movie? Yeah, of course, they called it Artemis. You can't even make this stuff up, or maybe you can, and they do. Because in 1977, they also made a movie called Capricorn 1. And this movie is about a fake mission to Mars. So just before launch, 3 astronauts are secretly pulled from their spacecraft due to a life support failure that would kill them in flight. Instead of canceling the mission, the government officials decide to fake a Mars landing in a hidden desert studio to avoid public embarrassment. The astronauts are forced to go along with the deception while the mission is broadcast to the world as if it were real.
It's hard to believe you really are that far away in space.
You believe it too.
So maybe it is as the Chili Peppers say, space is the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement.
The fact that they didn't go to the moon, they were just passing by. But delays, changes, and explanations raise more questions for me and others.
Neil Armstrong said, look, you know, if I were to go forward and talk about what actually happened, I've been told. Neil Armstrong said this to us, that my wife, my children, and my grandchildren would all be killed, that they would take us out somehow, some terrible accident. And he says, I'm not going to talk about it.
Here is an extract from the original press release. NASA scientists and engineers participating in exploration of Mars and the Moon reported the results of their discoveries at a briefing at the Washington National Press Club on March 21, 1996. It was announced for the first time that man-made structures and objects had been discovered on the Moon. The scientists spoke rather cautiously and evasively about these objects, with the exception of a UFO. They always mentioned that man-made objects are possible and stated the information was still under study and official results would be published later. It was mentioned at the briefing that the Soviet Union used to own some photo materials proving the presence of such activity on the Moon. And although it wasn't identified what kind of activity it was, thousands of photo and video materials from the Apollos and the Clementine space station showed many parts on the lunar surface where this activity and its traces were perfectly evident. The video, films, and photos made by US astronauts during the Apollo program were demonstrated at the briefing. People were extremely surprised why the materials hadn't been presented to the public earlier. NASA specialists answered, it was difficult to forecast the reaction of people to information that some creatures had been or still are on the Moon. In addition, there were some other reasons to it, which were beyond the control of NASA. Specialist for lunar studies Richard Hoagland says that NASA is still trying to alter photo materials before being published in public catalogs and files. They do some retouching, or are partially refocusing them while copying. Some investigators, Hoagland is among them, suppose that an extraterrestrial race had used the Moon as a terminal station during their activity on the Earth.
Wow, Neil Armstrong! Hey, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on the Moon. I just saw it on TV.
Oh, there's a tape delay, and with all the solar winds.
Neil Armstrong guy. Have you seen him on the talk shows?
Neil Armstrong, you mean the first man to walk on the moon?
Talk about a fish story.
Yeah.
Man, and they're buying it.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, don't come down so fast, Neil. You're afraid. You can't know what awaits you. None of us can.
Wait, seriously? Stanley Kubrick. Why would he direct a fake moon landing? I mean, why? Why fake the moon landing at all? They already had all this alien tech.
The government and the aliens thought it would be a nice way to sort of ease us humans into accepting that big, crazy technological shit was possible.
Wow. You guys are really into the moon.
I'm expecting you. Closest you're gonna get that closer this time. Here, fill us.
It's got a certain time. What's it mean?
Bob, I know you're in a spot, but I don't want to go back to Playtown.
What is so great about NASA?
They're not afraid of the future. We've got something here called a microwave oven. Cook this once in TV dinner, 25 minutes flat. That's a fact.
Yeah, for 7 guys. I'm talking about happy childhoods for millions of American kids.
We're going to the moon.
The moon. Leave the moon alone. You look up, it's there. It'll always be there. Don't pick at it. You're jamming glue in the tubes for a bunch of chain-smoking Corvette guys with flat tops. You're gonna go up, you're gonna come down, you're gonna become alcoholics and get divorced.
The chimps are smart. Yeah, how do you think Post did it?
I know how they did it. They stole our research.
You say you stand them down. Bottom line, I don't want to work for Edson River.
You don't really think you're actually going to the moon, do you? Really? Going to the moon?
No, I
Now, you know, when I do these conspiracy videos, I always have to bring God into it because it's the center of my life. For some people, this isn't just science. It's faith-based and spiritual. The Bible speaks of a firmament, a structure separating the heavens from the water, from the earth, all of that. A boundary, a design. So the question becomes, if there are limits placed on humanity, would we really be allowed to go beyond them? Let's take some verses, shall we? Genesis chapter 1, verse 6. And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." So there's a belief that there's water down here, then there's the sky, then there's the firmament, and then there's the waters and the heavens above. Genesis chapter 1, verse 8. And God called the firmament heaven, and the evening and the morning were the second day. Genesis chapter 1, verse 14 through 17 summarized says that the sun, the moon, and the stars were set in the firmament to give light. Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Job 37:18 describes the sky as a spread out metal mirror, emphasizing its solid nature. So if God didn't let the people build the Tower of Babel, why would he let us go to the moon? The question is the moon within the firmament, or is it outside of the firmament? Because NASA tells us that it's in space, which is presumably outside of the firmament. So the Tower of Babel, if you're not familiar, is found in Genesis chapter 11, where it tells of humanity's unified, prideful attempt to build a city and a tower reaching heaven in the land of Shinar. God intervened to stop their hubris by confusing their language and scattering them across the earth, creating diverse languages and stopping the city's construction. So, for context, this is past the flood in the Bible. All people spoke one language and lived together, defying God's command to disperse and fill the earth. The goal of the Tower of Babel is they wanted to make a name for themselves and prevent being scattered. The construction. They used advanced technology for the time, baked bricks and bitumen for mortar. The intervention. God saw that as a united people with one language, nothing they planned would be impossible. He confused their language so they could not understand one another. And the result, the project was abandoned and the people scattered across the earth, explaining the origins of different nations and languages. Also, I think God was maybe trying to protect them from finding out some truths. The name Babel is derived from this event, which in the Bible represents the confusion of languages. Interesting how we now have an app called Babbel. So, was it real or was it staged? At the end of the day, it isn't about just the moon. It's about trust, about history, and what we are told, and what we choose to believe. And maybe the bigger question is, if something this big could be staged, what else could be? So I know we don't have a definitive answer in any of these conspiracy videos, but I think the most important thing is that we are questioning things. You should always be allowed to ask questions. If you're not, they don't want you to know any more than they're telling you, and it's a control mechanism. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and let me know down in the comments what you think, any other conspiracies you want me to do, and I'll look into it. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.